welcome you to this teaching today that we're going to be going through Prince Roger Nelson. And we're going to be going through behind the music, which Dr. Ben asked me to do from one thing I did before. So we're going to be going through this, and we're going to look at some of what Prince was doing, and we're going to find out, was he a godly person or was he ungodly? And the only way we can find out this, we have to actually look behind the words and seeing what he's saying. Well, we're going to see how blatant and open many of these artists are, including Prince, and we're going to find out, was he a godly person or was he more of a heathen? So we're going to look at many of this, and as we continually say, I still want to thank the King James Bible University for taking off a lot of pressure from a lot of the server time that we've been going through, and now talking about they have extremely eased a lot of our pain from going through the shutting down, the crashes. So I really want to thank you guys for taking a lot of weight from over here, and you place it on yourselves. So with that, we're going to get started. We're going to look at this in a close way. We're going to go through it. So you still need to get your Bibles. Don't hold nothing to what I say or anyone else say. We're going to judge everything based on what the Bible says. So with that, we're going to get started. Dear Heavenly Father, we want to just thank you for all things. We want to thank you for allowing each and every person to come to and from work and to and from school. I ask that you bless them in a mighty way. Give them the spirit of wisdom, dear Father, to where they can discern, dear Father, what is truth and what is not truth. I ask, dear Father, that you also impart the spirit of knowledge, dear Father, to where once this teaching goes through, that you will be showing each and every one of us, including me. I ask, dear Father, that once they start listening to music, dear Father, to where they will pay closer attention to where they can judge whether it is worthy of hearing or it is worthy to being in the trash. Pray all these things in the name of Yeshua Messiah, Jesus Christ, amen. So, some of the things what I did here, I added some other things from the one I did the first one, because with this one here, at now Prince had passed on. So I added some stuff based on some of the accolades and what he did, and some other information that came out. So I actually added it to this. So we're going to go through that. We're going to look at some of the things that Prince is about. So same thing as Prince Roger Nelson was his name. Now he was formerly known as Prince, but you can also check. He was also known by Camilla, also with the symbol, which it was a love symbol, which he called it. But he was also he used a lot of different names in a lot of different places. And one of the names is that he used as a songwriter was Jamie Starr. And most people might have thought that was actually another person that he collaborated with, but it was actually Prince, because he also went under that name as Jamie Starr, because many times you'll see where he have on his album, he have all these different names. You'll think that he dealt with all these people, and he was really just dealing with himself. So we had Jamie Starr, we had Joey Cuckoo. Get that, Joey Cuckoo. We also had Tora, Alexander Nevermind, and we also had Christopher Tracy. All these names he actually went under. So next time if you see one of his old album covers or you look at a CD cover, you go in there and you look and you'll see these names there, and you'll actually see these names there, but it's actually Prince himself in putting in those names. Now, same thing, in his occupation was a singer-songwriter, and he was a multi-instrumentalist, and as a record producer, actor, and film producer. Now, many people don't know this, but Prince, he joined the Jehovah's Witness movement back in 2001, and that was done through a close friend of his, which is Larry Graham, and his fellow friend is also the Jehovah's Witness, which is Larry Graham. Now I'm gonna read this part that I put in here, because this part was added to where they put this in here based on some of the things that he's done. And it says numerous musicians and cultural figures reacted to Prince's death. and listen to the people that actually played tribute and really referenced him on Prince's death. President Barack Obama mourned him. The United States Senate passed a resolution praising his achievement as a musician, composer, innovator, and cultural icon. Cities across the U.S. held tributes and visuals in buildings and bridges and other venues in purple, which it was also done here, even in California. You know, they did the Forum. They also did the City Hall building, which most city halls in each state actually did that. Now we also have once they did that, and then other venues purple, and then 5 hours after the media reported his death, Prince was a top trending term on Twitter and on Facebook. Has 61 Prince-related interactions, and YouTube even interrupted their programming and aired a marathon of Prince music videos in Purple Rain. Now, we also had AMC theaters and other theaters screen Purple Rain at selected theaters. And for the following week, Saturday Night Live aired an episode honoring the title Good Night, Sweet Prince. Now, it keeps going down, and then featuring performances from his show. Then Nielsen reported, get this, that an initial spike of 42,000%, not mistaken, 42,000%, I had to do hard research to get that, 42,000% Prince catalog, which is going to be crazy, spiked up 4.41 million albums and songs from April 21st to April 28th. Now get this. In 5 of his albums that he made simultaneously topped the Billboard's 200, a first in charts history. So what that's saying theoretically is when he passed, people bought so much of his music, and it was on different albums. Those people bought those albums, and it actually ended up putting those albums on the top 200 Billboard chart. And they were simultaneously, all his 5 albums was on the Billboard charts. This is something that Michael Jackson didn't even achieve. So this is something that we really have to look at. Now, 3 weeks after his death, which is a crazy thing, 700 people claim to be half siblings. Unreal. They claim to be half siblings or descendants of Prince. Not knowing anything, but we're going to find out, was he a worshiper of the Most High God? This is the key thing we're going to find out, and we're going to get down to that. Now, based on his stage presence, his clothing, his appearances, we're going to find out, was it godly or ungodly? We know he had a lot of controversies. We know he made a lot of crazy songs, and he had a lot of crazy names. But we're going to find out, was he a godly person or not a godly person? We got to find that out. Now, we're going to find out also on his music, such as some of the titles. Sexy MF. That's one of them. You have Dirty Mind. You have Private Joy. You have Jack You Off. Darling Nikki. And Darling Nikki, also we have Tipper Gore, the wife of Al Gore, the vice president. It has here to where she even her 11-year-old daughter was caught listening to Darling Nikki, which in there it's talking about masturbation, in which she was found with her parent, and then her mother actually founded the Parents Music Resource Center, to where they was labeling the music for explicit lyrics. Most people don't even know that Al Gore's wife did this before she passed. But what we want to do, we want to understand what Prince was about. So with that, we're going to also look at the songs like What If. Now, when you look at What If, this is clearly speaking of the Savior. And at the end of this, We're going to be posting up a link to where you can go and get each one of these lyrics, and you can actually read them and see what they are, and you can actually break them down. Because some of them, you will not believe how some of these lyrics are. He had another song that was on the album, was called Revelation, which talking about end times. If you read it in the last paragraph, it states, and I had to put these in here because I want you to understand what he's saying. He said, through English glamour, casting a spell through Hebrew, Greek, and Roman hell higher, till we understand in color of the Pharaoh's hand. The color of the Pharaoh's hand. This is what he states in Revelation. Now he has another song called Act of God. And it says, how funny. Nobody's holy books are the same. Everybody's God has a different name. The day that it is over and the end of the game, and they all call it an act of God. This is what's in there. We have another song he titled Lion of Judah. Listen to some of the names that he's naming. He's naming some of these song titles. The Lion of Judah. This one has, like a lion of Judah, I strike my enemies down, as my God is living. Surely the trumpet will sound. There is one who should stand by my side through the good and bad, and let one stand with pride and best that I ever had. This is another one that he actually was using. Now we also have swine before pearls be before the swine. That's another one he had. He had an honest man, 7, the cross, and in a weird one he had is the rainbow children, which if most people look at it, when you look at it, and that was so coded to where rainbow children, where you look at a race, when you look at the race of people over here, the black people race over here, they were called, they actually are still to this day they're called rainbow, because we're like the rainbow of everything. We can go to the blackest of black people, and you can go to some of the whitest of the white people, and all in between we have every different shade that's coming all the way through, from the blackest of the black and whitest of the white, and they will all be black people, and that's why they're called a rainbow. Now this is one of the things that Prince used in his song lyrics as the rainbow. But he also tied to it deconstruction. It's on the same album, and this is one of the things that he deconstructed. And it was like almost like how Jesus would go in the back room and explain the parable to his disciples. We're going to read some of his lyrics in deconstruction. It says, one after the other, and banished one fled, and watches from a distance the destruction of the digital garden. Understand what he's saying, because he was having problems with the music industry at the time. And this is what that digital garden he's talking about. And then he said, with no more fruit to bear from the trees, in the haze from finally broken, when the rains came, in the awareness that never again would anyone lay claim to the treasures of the rainbow children. Understand how he's saying this. It's so coded, but it makes so perfect sense, where he fought with them so long, but he's letting you know that they can never lay claim to it, because he started owning his own masters. As though awakened from the dream, and muse opened their eyes, this time as queen. So this is one. But now we're going to look at another song that he actually wrote called Family Name. Listen to some of the words we have in here, and we're going to actually see exactly how he has this coded up. It has, teacher, teacher, what you say? Did you really come over in a boat? Understand now, that's quoting Deuteronomy 28:68. That's what this is actually quoting. But you have to say, when you're reading it, you have to look at sometimes the entire sentence that he's saying, or sometimes you have to catch what he's saying. He's coded it a different way, to where sometimes it's easy to catch, sometimes he'll allude around. And we're going to look at each one of these. And then it says, did it really go down that way? Or did we arrive before the ruin and ruin Thanksgiving Day. Understand how he's saying that. Then it says, teacher, what you say? Preacher, preacher, is it true that Jesus wants me to give my money to the likes of you? So here we clearly know through here he have a lot of Bible understanding, which Billy Graham, which I don't personally know, or I don't know the depth of his understanding of the Bible, but a lot of this, what he's saying here, has a lot of truth to it. So the same thing. So he's talking about being money, but then now let's look at the other part. It says, ride around in your Lexus coupe, drive us to the cleaners in a pinstripe suit, preacher. That ain't true. Now he's alluding directly to 1 Peter 5:2. Because technically, and you look at it, I don't care how you look at it any kind of way. If you go to Malachi 3 and 6, it tells you, for I'm the Lord, I change not. But preachers will tell you you're supposed to support them. And 1 Peter 5:2 tell you don't. So it's no contradiction in the Bible. So who's contradicting it? Technically the preachers, because the Bible is not a lie. So let a man be a liar, God will always stand true. Now we're going to look at another one, which is Animal Kingdom. In this, he's hitting the Bible in a lot of different areas. It says, who told us we should eat the swine? Key things that he's bringing up. You can bet your final money it damn sure ain't a friend of mine. This is what he's saying. What about the claim on the shore, souls in progress, here come the fishermen, soul no more. This is what he's saying. Then we're going to get down to I will die for you. Now this is on the same album, on the album that he made with When Doves Cry. Now it says, I'm not a woman, I'm not a man. I'm something that you never understand. I'll never beat you. You'll never die. You'll never lie. You'll never, and if you ever evil, I'll forgive you by and by. You go further down, it'll say, I'm not a human, I'm a dove. Directly, alluding directly to the spirit when the spirit came down in the bodily form in a human in a man bodily form. That's what he's quoting. And I'm conscious. I am love. I really need is to know that you believe. This is what he's talking about. Now, all these alluding in different areas of the Bible. And I'm talking about, and it's clear, it's not something to where he's going around the corner. If you go in here and if you actually is a scholar of the Bible, you literally going to be seeing this. But then it says right here, it says, what about some of the artists? And we're going to look at that. It says the time. I can show you many scriptures that relates to them. We have Vanity 6, Apollonia 6, The Family, 94 East, and Judith Hill. Judith Hill actually referring to a lot of stuff in the Apocrypha. Now the same album, as I said, I Will Die For You is on that one. But we're going to listen now to the song, and then we're going to dissect this. So we're going to listen to it, and then we're going to go right through it. So let me get this queued up, and we're going to go through this song, and then we're going to go right through it. Now we're gonna dissect this because once he get that, he goes back and he started repeating pretty much what he said. But we're gonna go through this and we're gonna see exactly what he's talking about, because a lot of this have a lot of cold things. Because the first thing that he says, and if you also look at the bottom on the site, you'll also see I have the lyrics there word for word to where you can actually go through it also with me. But we'll see the first one. He said, you and I engaged in a kiss. So when you go through it, the first thing you're going to do, we're going to go over to Psalms, because we're going to find out, one, he's not using the King James Bible. He's switching over and using another Bible, which I'm going to show you that and show you exactly how it is. But we're going to go over to Psalms 2. We're going to go over to Psalms. We're going to go to 2:11. And it's 2:11 and 2:12. And it says, and the king of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together. I'm sorry, 2:11 and 12. I went back the wrong way. Okay, 2:11, and it says, serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. So it also ties into another part, but we're going to go down. Then it says, kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way. You're going to see why it says it that way and why he's talking in this way, because this all is going to tie to everything that's going through there. So either the way he tied this in, I'm talking about it'll jump back and forth to this, because when you say lest he be angry, so he's not actually alluding that he is actually a god or prince, or but he actually is professing he's the son of God, but he's not professing that he is actually the son of, he's the son of Jesus. He's not trying to replace that. So basically what he's stating is that. And then you can also see where they talking about the kissing part, another part where you'll go to Psalms 85. And we'll look at 10. So Psalms 85 and 10, it says, mercy and truth are met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed each other. This is one of the reasons why he's saying that, because this is literally might be his version of a gospel song. Pretty much what this is doing. But now we're going to look at the next part where he goes in. It says, sweat of your body covers me. Now you have to look at the sweat of your body covers me. And then now we got to look at two things. The sweat of your body covers me. Most people are going to allude to the sexual content, but you have to remember where we came from. We came from the ground. And he's alluding to the rain hitting the ground, which that's where we come from. From the earth we came, and the earth we will return. This is where he's pulling. Now when you go over here to Genesis, we're going to look at Genesis 3:19. And we're going to look at that one, and we're going to see what it's saying. It says, in the sweat of thy face thou shalt eat bread until thou return unto the ground, for out it rist thou taken. So it's saying the same thing. So the sweat of thy face, so it's alluding to the same thing as God creating. This is the way he's alluded this. And then when you also look at another part, you can also go to Luke 22 and 44. 22 and 44. And it says, and being in the agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was as it were great drops of blood falling down to the ground. So we have to look at and understand exactly what he's saying all the time, because even where it tells you we're going to return to the ground, we always have to remember he's talking and he's trying to put this in a celestial way. He's trying to talk in a heavenly type language. So when he's looking at the ground, he's actually talking about us being the ground in the earth, and then the heavens, when it rains down, it's dropping it up on our body, and what it's talking. And he's gonna get more into that. Now, when you talking about now, he said, dream if you can a courtyard, oceans of violets in bloom. Now, this is where we found out he's not using the King James Bible. but he actually using another Bible, and he was most likely, which we already figured, that he's using the NLT Bible, and then he's also using his Jehovah's Witness Bible. Because this here is clearly speaking of Sodom and Gomorrah. Once you go into it, and we have the other translations to where we pull this up, and it's going identical to what he's saying. Now it said, and then it said, how can we tell this in the translation? Because what's going on when you got courtyard, ocean, violets, and bloom. Courtyard in many other translations is converted over from the vineyard, which you'll see in King James. Ocean in many other translations is translated into sea. So this is how we look at these, and we'll see. And then same thing when you look at violets and bloom, we'll see exactly what this is talking about, people and doing things, because as we read the scripture, you'll see. So we're going to look at the first one, and we're going to look at this to show you how we know he's not using the King James. We're going to go to Psalms 103. And if you want to visit there with me, 103, we're going to go to 15. And it says, for a man, his days are as grass, a flower of the field, so he flourisheth. That's what this says. But we're going to look at the NLT and see what the NLT say, and show you how this ties it to Sodom and Gomorrah and what he was saying. It says, in our days on earth are like grass, as wild flowers we bloom and die. That's one. You also have Ezekiel 7 and 10, which is completely all of it on what it's saying. And in the NLT, it tells you clearly, the day of judgment is here. Your destruction awaits. The people wickedness and pride have bloomed to full flower. This is what the NLT will state. But if you go to your King James, it's not going to state it that way. And this is why when most people, if you're a King James user, such as myself, if you're not really researching him and you're going through here, you will never see it. But if you go through here and you want to make sure what he's saying, you will check and you'll find out that he's actually using other scriptures to support what he's saying. So we're going to look at Ezekiel in 10. It says, behold the day, behold the day, behold it is come, the morning gone forth, and the rod have blossomed, pride have budded. So this here will completely throw you off, but you see in the NLT it's just kind of blunt to you. Because what was they doing in Sodom and Gomorrah? They were sitting there when they able to do whatever they want to do. This is what they do. They're violence and bloom. They'll sit there. These people, once they're in bloom, what they want to start doing, having sex with any and everything, is what this is saying. So the same thing, the day of judgment is here. Your destruction awaits. So it's speaking of that to where we're telling you about the courtyard. Why it's saying courtyard? Courtyard, a vineyard. A vineyard is talking about the same when the Lord has planted a vineyard, he's talking about a people. It's doing the same thing. So when he's talking about a courtyard, when you see a courtyard in other translations, it's saying the same thing. It's talking about people in this courtyard. And then it's saying ocean, many of them there in violence and bloom. So it's telling you exactly what's going on. Now, it gets down in here, and then how he validates that, it says animals strike curious poses. Now, when you look at it in the King James, you're not going to see it that way. But when you go to NLT, it says, do you think we are mere animals? Do you think we are stupid? And this is right out the NLT. So if you guys do these studies and you have an NLT, this is actually what you're going to be seeing. The King James is not going to state it that way, because the King James is going to say beast. So it'll allude you to something else and not take you over to this. But if you look at it in the NLT, it'll go right with it. Then he has this next part where feel the heat between me and you. So the heat is still talking about the charity, the love, and everything. You can actually allude that to Isaiah 18. Isaiah 18. And we're going to park it right over here at 4. In 18 and 4, and it says, So for the Lord said unto me, I will take my rest, and I will consider it in my dwelling place like a clear heat upon herb. So, and you know, herbs, when you look at it in a celestial way, you know it's talking about a people. Because when you look at it in the celestial side, which we had other teachings that goes back into that, and it shows you to where we had showed you what each one in the Bible means. So when it alludes to that and it starts talking in parabolic language, you understand what it was saying. So you can go back and actually look at those, and you'll see how that's tying that to that. Now we also, it says, how can you just leave me standing alone in a world so cold? Now you know this is clearly a world that's so cold, a world that's full of sin. Understand how he flips it around. See, because a world is so cold, you have to understand, a world is so cold, it's nothing there. So same thing as Jesus said, either you're hot, you know, you're warm, you're lukewarm, or you're cold. This is what he always saying. He's going to still spew you out. This is the same thing that he's saying. You're cold. A world that's so cold, a world that's full of sin. This is all he is saying. So, and then where you pour that at, we'll go to James. And we're going to look at James, and we're going to go right over here to 3 and 6. And you can see there, and it says, "In the tongue is as fire, in the world of iniquity. So it is the tongue amongst all our members, that it defileth the whole body, and seeth the fire of the course of nature, and set on fire of hell." This is all he's really talking about. You also have Psalms 27:9 speaking of the same thing. So when you're looking at it, where he's telling you he's in a world that's so cold, you can't sit there and do a study and just saying a world is so cold. You have to look behind the meaning, what cold mean. Cold mean is no spirit there. So they're only going to pertain to sin. That's all they're going to do. They're looking directly for sin, and that's what they're going to be doing, sinning. This is what he's stating in here. Then he says, maybe I'm just like my father. So he's letting you know that he's a believer, and he's a son of God. So he's one of the sons through Jesus Christ. This is what he's professing right here. And how can we say this? Because we're going to look at the next verse, but we're going to first deal with that first verse. Maybe I'm just like my father. And why he's stating it like that? Because as we're going to look later, he's going to get even more blunt. And it's saying right here, he shows mercy, but he's talking about keeping commandments. This is literally all he's saying. Maybe I'm just like my father, too bold. Why he's saying too bold? Because he's being bold in everything what he's saying. Same thing, we'll look at Psalms 89. We'll look at that one, then we'll go into another spot, and I'm going to show you even more detail. Psalms 89, and we're going to look at 30. We're going to go down. So it says, "For his children forsake my law, and walk not in my judgments." This is what he's talking about. "If ye break my statutes and keep not my commandments, then I will visit their transgression with a rod, and their iniquity with stripes." This is what he's talking about in here, but we have to remember he's talking about maybe he's just like his father, too bold. And too bold, the father is blunt. I'm talking about he's explicitly blunt in his word to obey his commandments. He's not alluding to anything to where we'll go to most churches and they'll kind of dance around it and try to get you to go that kind of way, to try to sit there that way, but they won't bluntly just blurt it out. But he's bringing it out, and then you can look at the other part. Maybe he's too bold, and the same as Jesus saying, and watch this, and saying this the same thing as he's sitting there saying that he's one of the sons of God. We're going to look at John 14:15, which most people know. That's what's right there. And maybe I'm just like my father, too bold. Because what he's saying, if you love me, keep my commandments. So what Prince is saying here, if you love him, keep them commandments of God. This is all he actually saying. So we have to remove him and just listen to what he's actually saying in his words. Now he goes on and he says, maybe I'm just like my mother. She's never satisfied. Now anytime he's using mother, he's referring to the entire church body, which this is how the Bible refers to the church as a woman. And this is where you can see where it gets like that. Because what? She's never satisfied. And we're going to look at a couple of scriptures where you even see in Proverbs 30, 15 and 16, Proverbs 27 and 20, Ecclesiastes 4 and 8, Habakkuk 2 and 5, Isaiah 56 and 11. And even in 56 and 11, I even put the quote there, and it says, like greedy dogs, they are never satisfied. They are ignorant shepherds in following their own path and intent on personal gain. This is from right directly from the NLT version on where he's pulling this stuff from. We have Ecclesiastes 1 and 8. Everything is worrisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. Job 20 and 20. They were always greedy and never satisfied, nothing remaining in all things that dreamed about. All from the NLT. And what we have to look at is how he's saying this and how he's positioned this. And he's literally just reading and pulling scriptures out of the Bible and relating it and putting it in his terms. Same as he's saying, why do we scream at each other? This is what it sounds like when doves cry. Now he's using the same thing when the Spirit was upon Jesus, but he first was like a dove and then it was in bodily shape. That's what it goes into. But this is what he's saying, but this is what he's talking about right here. But the same thing, when he cried, when he yelled up to the Father, he's talking the same language. This is what it sounds like when doves cry. Because what he did, he wept that we were such a sinful people, and he actually even prayed for us. This is all he's talking about, and I can actually take you to Luke 3:22, where he came down in body shape, but you have Jeremiah 25, 38, 36, you have Zephaniah 1 and 10 and 13, and Jeremiah 14, 2 and 3. Now, where he get really hairy and he really start hitting in and start really going into it, it says, touch it if you will, my stomach. Feel how it trembles inside. So we have to understand what it's talking about, because you was formed in the belly. Understand what it's saying. Understand how he's putting this. You feel how it trembles, and you was formed in the belly. And we'll go to Jeremiah, and we'll look at that one. Jeremiah, we're going to go to 1 and 5. And we're going to look at that part. It says, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou comest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. So this is what it's saying, because he's going to qualify this based on what that is, or what that verse is. And I'm reading this out of the King James, but once you see it in the NLT, you're going to see how he qualifies it in the next verse. But you also have Habakkuk, and it talks about 3 and 16, and it actually gets into it right there where it talks about it. And it says, when I heard, my belly trembled, my lips quivered at the voice, rottenness entered into my bones, and I trembled in myself that I might rest on the day of trouble. And it gets into a little bit more. But now, how do we qualify this? He goes on, because same as I said, when you allude to David, he was shaped in iniquity, and this is how he links that verse up directly to this verse. It says, you got the butterflies all tied up. All this mean is You keeping people from changing and following the true and living God and be free of sin. And I'm going to explain that because men love darkness, truth to a lie. Why do I say it that way? Understand what a butterfly is. We have to understand and why you put a butterfly, and I'm going to give you the scriptures to hold everything to it. He said you had the butterflies all tied up. A butterfly starts out as a caterpillar. Once it starts out as a caterpillar, his thing in life is he goes and he eats all this roughage. Then he gets up, he makes a cocoon. This butterfly literally liquefies and changes its entire shape and comes out, and now it's a butterfly and flies away. It then turned from a creature that was walking and crawling around on the ground, and now it has became a butterfly to fly away. One of the most beautiful, most people want to talk like creatures that you just see just flying. This is what he's actually talking about, because you have them all tied up. Why he's saying it that way? Because you're unable to change. So sin has you so tied up into doing wrong, you can't change from this sin nature and go to this butterfly side. Why he's saying it that way? Because when you look at Romans 1:25, it says, who changes the truth from God to a lie. And we'll look at that one. We're going to look at Romans 1:25. And we're going to see how he's saying it. It says, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. He's saying the same identical thing to what Prince pulled this from. Because if we love the lie, and all Prince is saying is you trying to be, he wants you to be a butterfly, to fly, to be free of sin. But you're all tied up. Because what? You are shaped in iniquity. This is all he's saying. We also have John 3:19 and 2 Corinthians 5:17, which he is a new creature. Because when you look at 2 Corinthians in 5 and 17, and it's clear there. Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature, and old things are passed away. Look at a butterfly. Once that butterfly makes that cocoon, I'm talking, he completely liquefies down. You can't even explain it. It liquefies down from a butterfly. From a caterpillar, and it restructures itself, and it become a butterfly. I'm talking about the nature of God is unreal. But this is what they trying to keep you from doing. This is where they try to keep you from being. They trying to keep you from flying to be free of sin. And the same thing is, he says, don't make me chase you. Even doves have pride. Now this part is somewhat confusing on a verse based on dove chase and pride in a verse, because pride has nothing to do with God. And I'm going to show you a few verses on this. So this here is a bit confusing, which he could be playing with Paul quite a bit, to where Paul give you flip sides of that. So this is the only part on this, because we personally don't know Prince, but based on this verse here, into doing the research of this, only way I can see him doing this is a flip side, that he's giving you a flip side of Paul. How we're going to see this is, we're going to look at Ecclesiastes, and if you have your Apocrypha, you can see this, but if you don't have Apocrypha, then I just read it to you, and you'll see exactly what I'm saying. And we're going to go there, and we're going to go to 10 and 7. And we're going to look at that one, and to tell you, pride is hateful before God and man, and both do one commit iniquity. It's clear as day. Pride is hateful before God. It's another spot where you look at 10 and 12. And then it says the beginning of pride is when one, depart from God. What part do, you don't miss anything. We have 10 and 18. I'm talking about it's just continued. Pride was not made for man, nor furious anger for them that are born of a woman. I'm talking about it's clear as day. So this is why we end up seeing to where he says, even doves has pride. So he's talking about that sinful man that's in him. But this is something you need to get rid of, because if you had them butterflies all tied up, you're unable to come out of that shell to go and be free of sin. So he's tying this up. So you have to watch how he puts this stuff. He carefully crafted this to where, I'm not saying he did anything bad, but I truly believe this is actually probably to him as a gospel song. Because I'm talking about the entire lyrics is all spiritually related. So this might be his way of doing it, but this is what he's actually saying. And if you can go through here all day, and all you do is see all the catchphrases he's using, you will see this is all he is saying. So we understand that Prince, we can see many people say that he was he did many things. He wore pants with the back out. He had done many things in many different ways. He had gotten on stage and he had dressed real provocative. He had done many different things. But one thing that you have to always understand about Prince, what we have to do, we have to look at his background and his history. And he, at the age of 18, he was always in the forefront of media. And if he's always in the forefront of media, we have to see how was he acting, and was he really out of character with God? These are some of the things we have to really think about. And why I say that is because once you look at Prince in his whole totality, many people thought he was a homosexual. You can't find nowhere, anywhere, where you see where men have came up and said that him and Prince was lovers. You don't see that anywhere. You never hear Prince talk about that. You never hear Prince talk about homosexuality. You never seen him where he was on screens to where he was linked up with men. You never catch this anywhere. But you do see where he was married. He had a child, and that child died at an early age. Died, I think a month or two right after it was born. But he was always tied to women. So we don't see nowhere in there where Prince was tied to crazy things. Prince also was a great giver of money. Prince also did a lot of stuff, and he did it all anonymously. Now, what a lot of people don't know, which I always share with people, even in the last one, is Prince was a great giver to technology. He I don't know, same as I said, I didn't personally know him, but he was a great lover of computer technology. And I'm talking about his shows. He used to support, back in his town where he was born and raised, Hackfest. Sometimes he'll perform at them. I'm talking about he'll provide money for these things. He gave money for these type of things. He also had it was another one he had was a code, I Can Code, I believe it was, and I want a code, but he did this for over 1,000 children in poverty-stricken areas. And I'm talking about he was teaching these kids how to program. He literally supplied this. I'm talking about he gave money all the time to different things, but he never boasted about it. He never made a big thing to where we'll see some of these other big personalities where they give money, and the first thing they want to do before they do it, they want to make sure press is there. Once press is there, the first thing they want to do, now they want to show them giving it to them. Prince wasn't about that. Prince always would give anonymously, or they knew he was giving it. He didn't want no press there. So it shows all through the time. You can see where Prince was never tied up. Now you see where he'd get caught up in in musical type battles, which a lot of it was well known with Michael Jackson. They was trying to see who's number one. You see things like that, and then he had that fight to where he was trying to leave a record company, but mainly past that, you don't see or hear anything big or bad that went on with Prince Roger Nelson. You never heard anything to where he was losing his character or he was acting really out of the norm to where he did things that would really damage his character, which you can see in many other artists. And this is something, he didn't speak much when you see him in front of the camera. You didn't see much where he spoke, about anything. Sometimes he'll say stuff and say a couple of words and nobody knew what he was talking about. I've seen that, witnessed that myself, and didn't understand what he was saying. But all in all, he never spoke nothing that was ever really outlandish. Now his provocative dressing, I didn't personally know him, but his provocative dressing, as he started getting more and more popular, he cleaned it up a little bit more. But what we still see is that's the most that we've seen outlandish that he done. But it was nothing to where he was tied up with police officers or anything to where he was dealing with things that you see other artists have to deal with. So when he passed, I'm talking about, you have some of the most prominent people in America reference this man, and you have states to where I'm talking about they turn, I'm talking about government buildings and turned them purple for Prince Roger Nelson. So that speaks a lot for him, because I can tell you you have a lot of high notoriety people that have passed on, and they didn't look at him in that way. And I'm talking about, you have we can go into Michael Jackson, and we can see all the legal stuff that he went through, but then all the controversy went behind him. And you didn't see this with Prince Roger Nelson. But the main thing is, once you look at some of his lyrics and you see how he's naming some of these songs and how he names them and some of the wording he has in there, one thing we do know, he was a spiritual person. Now where his destiny is, that's between him and God. But looking at his lyrics, this could have been his form of gospel music. I don't know, but because it has too much gospel lyrics in there and too much scriptures related in there, to where if you listen to it and you read it, and I think more so, besides people singing it and then just learning the words, if you really looked at the words and see what it's saying, most of you will actually be able to decipher it automatically, because it's going to start hitting you, because he's going to actually, and some of them you'll see, some of it is almost blatant verses to where he speaks of this. So we have to look at Prince in another light, to where he wasn't this person to where we just think that he was this big rock star, and he didn't reference God. So he did it in his music, and I believe he lived a pretty good life in doing that, because he gave a great amount of money, but still his destiny, that's between him and God. This, I have to respect him based on what he have in his lyrics. So based on what he have in his lyrics, I think he did many great things to where he opened it up to where a lot of people, probably atheists and other ones, so forth, who's on the cuff, probably sitting there saying his lyrics all day long and don't know they actually singing the Bible. So could have did that unknowingly, or he probably did it knowingly. I don't know which way he could have took it, unless somebody could have interviewed him at the time when he did them, and they knew he was doing this, and they interviewed him to find out if he actually was doing that or not. So with that, I just want you and everyone to know that Prince music and the meaning behind it has a lot related with the Bible. So he's closely related to it, and he's far from the other side of being on Satan's side. So people sit there and think he's on that side. He's far from it, because you can go through his lyrics and you can clearly see, one, he did read a Bible, wasn't King James, but we know most likely NLT and probably the Jehovah's Witness Bible. But we knew he read one to where he knew directly who the Lord is. He's quoting verses from Leviticus, and he's going all the way back into Revelations. So we know, and he might have did that on purpose to where he can, because you'll see in other ones where he'll quote stuff in Genesis, and then you'll see where he's quoting other parts and he's going all the way to Revelation. And that could be to other people or relating to people, letting them know, we're going to tell you what, I know the book from Genesis to Revelation. Could have been what he was doing, we don't know. But, you know, we have fun, and a lot of teachers, what we do, we have fun doing things like this, because then we find out more about, you know, a lot of artists that actually reference God, but then he just referenced so much of it. I'm talking about it's really unreal. And if you go through some of his other music, you'll see he's pretty much really blatant with it, to where you can see the verses in there. So I will be putting the link up there to where you can go and you can click on any one of his songs, and you'll actually be able to see all the lyrics there. So with that, I want to thank each and every one that has tuned in and watched this. But go through it and look at it, and you'll see how close that Prince was actually tied to a lot of scriptures that you probably read all the time, and you probably didn't even know that you was actually, when you sang one of his songs, you actually probably didn't know that you was actually singing scripture. So I want to thank each and every one for joining us, and I will wish you a good night, and shalom.